Humankind has created a world worth exploring and a past worth learning about. Art, war, government, religion, architecture, and so much more. Without these things, the world as we know it today would be vastly and starkly different. We know that these things matter and that they have existed for centuries upon centuries. But how much do we know about how it all came to be? Not how humans started to walk the earth, or when they became anatomically the same as us today, but how did they evolve with the world around them? What do we know about the birth of civilization?
This video was brought to you by Humankind, a historical strategy game where you will rewrite the entire narrative of history. It is incredible to think how these people made the transition from nomadic societies to established communities and discovered agriculture by laying the foundations of what we today, their descendants, call civilization. Humankind gives you the chance to experience this history on your own. This is a game of historical strategy in which you will rewrite the entire narrative of human history and create a unique civilization. There are more than 61 playable cultures in the main game and 73 in total if you have all the additional content. Each one brings its special gameplay layer, leading to never-endless outcomes. You will have to take impactful moral decisions, make scientific discoveries, show your tactical skills, do battle, expand and build your civilization throughout the years, and face narrative events that will happen randomly during your game depending on your own choices and actions. Humankind. It's a special game because it takes you through our wonderful history in a very interactive way, and you can change our story and shape it the way you want through your choices. Build your fame and leave your mark on Humankind. Click on my link in the description to purchase Humankind and rewrite history as we know it.
Before there was modern civilization as we know it, there was the Neolithic Era. This was the period near the end of the Stone Age, after both the Paleolithic and Mesolithic eras, and it was the time when agriculture and the domestication of wild animals began to spark the interest of contemporary humankind. As humans began to shift from their lives as hunter-gatherers and looked to simplify the process of providing for their basic needs, this period transformed into what we know today as the Neolithic or Agricultural Revolution. While it is not known exactly where men first decided to start planting seeds or taming beasts, it is believed that the Neolithic Revolution likely began around 10,000 BC in a region of the Middle East known as the Fertile Crescent. During this time, the entire way of life of humankind evolved. For one, prior to the adoption of agriculture and farming, there was no such thing as cities or civilizations as we know them today. Instead, people would generally live in small groups, possibly extended family, in temporary settlements as they moved around to hunt and gather necessary food and resources throughout the year. Across the globe, people began to plant and grow native crops so they could not only have an abundance of what they needed, but they also no longer needed to search for them. They likewise realized that if they could domesticate and even breed certain animals around them, this could provide them with further food and other benefits. This was huge for multiple reasons. For one, there was suddenly an option of having a surplus of necessities and the ability to maintain such a surplus, which for the first time opens up the possibility of having larger settlements and even the creation of cities and full-blown civilization. Additionally, the increased ease of providing for the settlement meant that not everyone had to be involved in the collection or production of food, and instead, some members of society were able to focus on other jobs, such as being craftsmen. Suddenly, Humankind could go from having only a few dozen people in a single 200 square kilometer area, spending days on end just searching for the food they needed to survive, to growing populations, sharing single cities, and boasting a surplus of necessities while providing opportunities for more production of useful commodities. But this wasn't all. Archaeologists have also noticed that humans during this period seemed to really improve their production skills when it came to hunting tools and even art. Stone tools became smoother, more perfected, and farming tools also began showing up alongside them. Art, furthermore, evolved, with pottery becoming even more prominent and utilized, accompanied by bigger and bolder sculptures and architecture, now that the people who created them no longer had to move their sculptures around or abandon their architecture to follow their needs throughout the year. And soon, all of this adaptation and ingenuity led to what we know now as the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age marks the period when humans transitioned from exclusively using stone tools for all things to now utilizing metal, specifically bronze. While at first it seems that some of the early civilizations in the Fertile Crescent had chosen copper, it wouldn't take too long before people learned that by mixing tin with copper, they could create an even stronger and more durable metal, which would be bronze. This discovery not only led to the production of bronze tools and eventually weapons, but it also contributed to the increased interaction between the civilizations that now existed. First, it's important to understand that there are a few specific traits that generally make a civilization a civilization. The existence of differing cities, a clear governing body, oftentimes a shared religion, a distinct social structure, written language, and art are all factors in determining if something is or was truly a civilization or not. It is thus generally believed that the first true civilization to exist was birthed in Mesopotamia, or what is now the region around Iraq, Syria, and even Turkey. This civilization can be traced back as far as 3300 BC and would soon become associated with the early civilizations of the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. The Indus Valley civilization can also be traced back to a similar time frame, though it is still believed that it came after the start of the first Mesopotamian civilization. The Indus Valley, now encompassing parts of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India, boasted one of the largest early civilizations. But it wasn't the only one to come about shortly after the Mesopotamians. Egypt may be one of the most well-known of the first civilizations, possibly due to its rich and stunning culture and arts, and its creation is usually placed on the timeline at around 3150 BC. Ancient Egypt also stands as a widely understood example of how some early governments and societies functioned, and though not the very first, it is surely one of the most significant. Still, other now famous early civilizations were all important examples of how, when, why, and where humankind evolved. Furthermore, as mentioned earlier, the birth of these civilizations also led to the populations of each coming into contact with others, and, maybe more importantly, the development of early trade networks. Trade, truly, has helped to shape the world as we know it today, and it started all the way back with these early ancient civilizations. Now that it seems that everyone had a surplus in goods and tradesmen who could specialize in the production of certain commodities, it only made sense to start sharing these goods. It also wasn't a new idea to trade goods between people, such as meat for grain or one tool for another. But this initially would simply begin within each individual community. Then, some of the cities within these civilizations eventually realized that other cities within the same could produce certain foods or different goods that maybe the climate didn't allow for in others. As a result, trade began to expand from only within one city to another. This was often immensely time-consuming, and sometimes even dangerous due to the long and difficult journeys required. But it was quite lucrative nonetheless. It didn't take long for these early traders to subsequently look for goods farther and farther away, eventually beginning to trade not just between cities, but now between civilizations. Products such as spices and metals were common in this new network, which is believed to have been first created from trade between merchants of the Mesopotamian civilization and the Indus Valley civilization. This was only the first step in the boom of global trade that would later come and never fade. What truly led to the development of agriculture and in turn civilizations as a whole is actually still debated, and some historians argue that the term revolution isn't even fitting. The guess is that it could have come from an array of factors, such as a changing climate, advances in intelligence, population pressure, or a plethora of similar reasons. Whatever the cause, the Neolithic Revolution's impact on life as we know it today cannot be understated. While we don't know the exact details of how and why early humans began to embrace farming, domestication, and city building, we do know that it was this point in time that birthed the first civilizations, beginning in the Fertile Crescent and beyond.